3:30 hours, Odon Valley. The ground in the valley is not shaking from artillery. It is vibrating in a steady, low-frequency rhythm that a soldier first feels in his kneecaps before he hears it. It is the tremor of pent-up mechanical energy forcing its way through the darkness. Through the dense, cold morning fog, a mass of steel shifts, seeming to fill the entire valley. It is not the maneuver of a single unit, but the simultaneous, coordinated movement of 600 tanks in a confined space. The metallic screech of unoiled tracks mingles with the smell of churned, damp earth and the acrid stench of unburnt diesel. The physical reality on site. Inside a Churchill tank of the 31st Tank Brigade, the driver presses his back against the hard steel seat while attempting to force the gearbox against the unyielding resistance of the mud. Visibility through the narrow vision slit is barely 50 meters, a world of gray shadows and swirling grit. The technical breakdown reveals the driver is functionally bound to the extreme technical limitations of the vehicle. He does not act as a pilot, but as a passenger in a vibrating metal box, rolling blindly into an operational uncertainty that lies beyond his perception. No unit on the British line knows at this moment exactly where this massive armored wedge will split the front. The danger is physically palpable but operationally invisible to the command level. This means the beginning of Operation Epsom marks a breakthrough attempt, planned as a strategic solution. But due to the physical parameters of the Odon Valley, it mutates into a tactical dead end. It is the exact point where bold maneuver warfare transitions into a state of operational suicide. No one knows where the first hit will fall. The analysis reveals a central problem. Why does the British breakthrough at the Odon fail, despite a massive firepower of 700 guns against the relentless geographical reality of a muddy riverbank? The investigation dissects the logistical standstill in the so-called Scottish corridor, the systemic attrition at Hill 112, and the precise moment when the reactivation of German reserves, the 2nd SS Panzer Corps, finally neutralizes the British initiative. It is the forensic documentation of systems breaking under the weight of their own mass. The plan for Operation Epsom is based on pure mathematical superiority. Montgomery presses two entire divisions, the 15th Scottish Infantry and the 11th Armored Division, into an operational space that measures exactly 3 kilometers at its narrowest point. It is the vision of a steamroller that must, however, pass through a geographical bottleneck not designed for such mass. The physical reality on site. Outside on the soaked field paths, the sound of thousands of boots creates a dull, squelching rhythm. An infantryman of the 15th Division feels the cold water seeping through the seams of his boots, while right beside him, the Churchill tanks grind the embankment into a black, pulpy mass. The mud sucks at the wheels of the supply trucks until the metal of the axles groans audibly under the load. It is the state of material reaching its physical stress limits. The technical breakdown reveals the geology of the Odon Valley was treated as a secondary variable in strategic planning. Yet the Odon is not a wide river. It is a narrow obstacle with steep, unstable banks and a soft, treacherous bottom. For the tank driver, this terrain means constantly over-revving the engine just to avoid sinking into the bank. When a 40-ton Churchill bottoms out, it transforms from a mobile weapon into a static obstacle, physically blocking the entire supply route. Geology becomes the primary friction variable here, neutralizing all planning. Tactical density in the corridor reaches a level on the morning of June 26th that causes the entire system to collapse. 60,000 men and hundreds of vehicles attempt to move forward simultaneously. The movement speed of the columns drops to less than 800 meters per hour. A systemic paralysis emerges. In the radio sets of the British units, an aggressive white noise reigns, a chaos of overlapping frequencies because too many transmitters are operating in too confined a space. Orders from command reach the front line with a time delay often exceeding 60 minutes.
No.
In this time, the situation on the ground has already changed multiple times.
Push forward, take the flank.
On the German side, the commanders of the 12th SS Panzer Division immediately grasp the weakness of this mass. They do not need to storm the corridor or conduct complex counterattacks. They only need to keep it under constant fire. Every German shell that falls into this immobile mass inevitably finds a target. The confinement makes tactical flexibility impossible for the British. This means the British advantage of numerical mass is transformed into a lethal trap by the geographical constriction and logistical inertia. Space and time are working against the attacker. On the second day of Operation Epsom, the collapse reaches the operational control level. To violently break open the bogged-down corridor, Montgomery orders the massive use of Corps' artillery. Over 700 guns begin a drum fire that turns the ground into a cratered landscape. The goal is a creeping barrage behind which the infantry can advance. But here, the synchronization of combined arms fails completely. The physical reality on site. The air over the Odon Valley begins to tremble so violently that the sensitive optics in the British Sherman tanks vibrate in their mounts. It is a constant physical pressure on the eardrums of the soldiers. An infrasound storm that suppresses all rational thought. The smoke of the explosions mixes with the morning fog to form a wall without any line of sight. The technical breakdown reveals the system has lost its ability to steer itself. British fire superiority is physically present, but it has become operationally blind. Through the artificial fog, the British artillery observers lose all orientation. A Scottish platoon leader stares at his map while the shells of his own batteries impact around him. Coordination no longer takes place. The artillery reacts to new targeting data with a delay of over 20 minutes, a time span in which tank engagements at this distance have long been decided. This operational gap is exacerbated by a technical detail, the difference in radio discipline and target acquisition.
Enemy panzers advancing. Static is bad, sir. Can't get a clear signal through. Keep trying. We have to coordinate. Target acquired. We're hedging iron. British armor behind the hedgerow. Range 800 meters.
While the British tank units of the 11th Armored Division are stuck in the valley's traffic jam waiting for orders from above, German combat groups act decentrally. A Panther commander of the SS Division Hohenstaufen, having just arrived after a forced march from the east, does not need a corps order to engage a target 2,000 meters away. He uses the superior Zeiss optics and the flat trajectory of his 7.5 centimeter KWK-42, while the British Shermans in the valley struggle even to identify their targets through smoke and hedges. On the German side, geology is used as a tactical weapon. Commanders utilize the steep slopes of the valley to position their Panthers so they can engage the British tanks from above while they are mired in the swamp at the riverbank. The friction of the system reaches its peak when the 11th Armored Division attempts to overtake the 15th Scottish on the narrow paths. Tanks stand bumper to bumper while German mortars concentrate fire on the immobile column. The consequence? The delayed timing of the British advance and the complete loss of artillery coordination allowed German reserves to methodically lock the corridor. The system has reached the point of maximum entropy. June 29th marks the moment of final escalation, where every strategic alternative disappears. The British troops have crossed the Odon under heavy losses, but are now stuck in a geographical depression. Before them dominates Hill 112, a slope that becomes the anchor point of the entire invasion. Whoever holds this hill controls the exit of the valley and the road to Caen. The physical reality on site. The metallic smell of heated iron and burnt rubber hangs over the tall grain fields at the foot of the hill. When a German 88 shell strikes the armor of a Sherman, a short, high-pitched screech occurs. The enormous kinetic energy of the impact heats the interior of the turret in seconds to critical temperatures that render the interior instantly unsurvivable. The technical breakdown reveals Hill 112 functions as a ballistic wall. It is no longer a classic engagement involving tactical maneuvers. It is a continuous industrial erosion of material and personnel under maximum systemic pressure. In the grain fields below the crest, another form of combat reality prevails. The infantry of the 15th Scottish Division crawls through the wheat, unable to lift their heads. The dust of the drying grain mixes with the acrid smoke of burning tank wrecks. A soldier's field of vision shrinks to the stalks directly in front of his eyes. From the German perspective, the battle at Hill 112 is a war of the wheat fields. SS combat groups used the tall grain to engage British tanks with Panzerfäusts from close range. The 12th SS Panzer Division acts here, already reduced to 35% of its authorized strength, as a static trap. The range superiority of the Panthers, already documented on D-Day, neutralizes British armor as far as 1,800 meters. The Tiger tanks of the 101st Heavy SS Panzer Battalion on the Horizon Tower as monoliths with superior range. These systems operate from a distance the British weapons cannot bridge. The ballistic superiority of the German 8.8 centimeter flak dug in on the reverse slope of the hill proves to be the ultimate physical wall. These guns were originally built for the sky, but here in the Odon Valley, they are the arbiters of the ground war. Every British wave attempting to storm the crest is systematically neutralized by the kinetic energy of these batteries. A British radio operator in a disabled tank hears only the shallow breathing of his comrade, while the system around them ceases to exist. The effect is clear. Operation Epsom ends in a tactical dead end at Hill 112, where both sides exhaust their operational reserves without sustainable strategic advantage. Geography and ballistics have defeated numerical weight. The forensic balance of Operation Epsom documents the complete failure of the planning. Over 4,000 dead on the British side alone, and hundreds of destroyed tanks for a territorial gain that remains strategically worthless in the end. Caen remains firmly in German hands. The operational breakthrough was smothered in its infancy by the inertia of its own mass and the friction of the terrain. Montgomery's calculation that pure numbers would force victory ignored the physical limitations of space and time. Yet this systemic attrition at the Odon has a far-reaching consequence only visible in the overall context of the invasion. The 2nd SS Panzer Corps, the last great strategic reserve in the West, was drawn into this battle of attrition and decimated there, both mechanically and in terms of personnel. The Panzer Divisions Hohenstaufen and Frundsberg may have held the hill, but they lost their operational offensive power. The price for holding the front was the final consumption of substance necessary for an effective counteroffensive. While the smoke stagnates over the wrecks on Hill 112, the face of the war changes fundamentally. We leave the mud-choked valley floor of the Odon, but we do not find the open space promised by the High Command. Instead, we look toward the heights of the Caen Plateau, a geometric nightmare of swept concrete and unobstructed sightlines. There, the technological superiority of tanks is not neutralized by thickets, but by a mile of open ground overseen by the reinforced bunkers and flak towers of a modern fortress. In the next episode, we analyze the first major assault on this concrete barrier, Operation Windsor. We examine the Canadian assault on the concrete fortress of the Carpiquet airfield and dissect how Allied technological superiority shatters against the forensic reality of a decimated but fanatical SS defense. Operation Epsom failed not due to a lack of firepower, but due to the inability to control space, time, and mass simultaneously. Operation Carpiquet will show what happens when this mass meets a wall of concrete and fanaticism. Space, time, and mass remain decisive.